At my own engagement dinner, my future sister-in-law raised her wine glass, smiled straight at me, and said, "Some women are just really good at trapping men with babies." The table went silent. She didn't know I was standing in the hallway that night 3 years ago, when she told her brother to leave me. And she definitely didn't know I recorded every word. Stick with me. The dinner was at an upscale steakhouse in Raleigh. Dane's whole family was there, his parents, cousins, even his aunt who barely spoke to anyone. I sat beside him, hands folded in my lap, trying to ignore the tight feeling in my chest. I've always been quiet, the type who watches more than talks. Eloan sat across from me, polished as always. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. But her eyes? Cold. Territorial. Like I had taken something that belonged to her. When she made that toast, a few relatives gave awkward laughs, like they didn't know where to look. Dane's hand slid under the table and squeezed mine. Protective. Reassuring. But he didn't confront her. Not yet. He's steady, loyal, sometimes too trusting when it comes to his sister. Her words pulled me straight back 3 years. I remembered standing in that hallway outside Dane's old apartment. I had come over to surprise him. Instead, I heard Eloan's voice through the half-closed door. "She's not good enough for this family," she told him. "Girls like her always find a way to lock men down." My heart cracked right there. I didn't wait to hear his answer. I just left. That same night, sitting alone in my bathroom, I stared at a pregnancy test in my shaking hands. Positive. My whole world shifted in one breath. I never told Dane then. When he came to my apartment days later, confused and asking for space, I let him walk away. I refused to beg someone to stay, even if I loved him. But life has a way of circling back. He found out later. He chose me. Chose us. And we built something real after that. Across the table, Eloan was still smiling like she had won something. I felt strangely calm. Not angry. Just finished hiding. So I set my napkin down, looked straight at her, and said softly, "Funny, because I almost lost your brother because of you." The entire table froze. Even the waiter stopped moving. For the first time that night, Eloan's smile slipped. 3 years earlier, everything between me and Dane broke in one quiet night. I remember the hallway first. The soft yellow light. The sound of my own breathing as I stood outside his apartment door. I had come over to surprise him after my shift, still wearing my clinic scrubs, takeout in my hands. The door wasn't fully closed. I heard Eloan's voice inside. Sharp. Controlled. Certain. "You don't see it, Dane, but I do. She's manipulative. Girls like her always are." My body went still. Dane sounded tired. "Maris isn't manipulative. She's just different." Eloan gave a small laugh. "Different. She's trying to lock you down. You've been dating less than a year, and she's already everywhere in your life." I felt my chest tighten. "She's not refined," Eloan continued. "She doesn't fit this family. You deserve someone polished. Someone who won't trap you." There was a long silence. The kind that makes your heart pound louder. Then Dane spoke, quieter this time. "I don't know. I just feel pressured lately." That was the moment my world cracked. I didn't wait to hear more. I didn't knock. I didn't walk in. I just turned around and left as quietly as I came. The takeout bag slipped from my hand and hit the floor near the stairs, but I didn't go back for it. I drove home in silence, her words repeating in my head. Manipulative. Trap him. Not refined. That night, I sat on my bathroom floor, still in my scrubs, staring at the pregnancy test in my hand. Positive. I took another one just to be sure. Positive again. My hands were shaking so badly I had to place both tests on the sink. I should have called Dane right then. I should have told him. But all I could hear was his hesitation, and her voice over it. So I waited. Days passed. Then he showed up at my apartment. He looked exhausted. Confused. Like he hadn't slept. "Maris," he said softly, standing in my doorway. "I care about you so much. But everything feels fast. I need time to think. I need space." I searched his face, wondering how much of this was his voice and how much was hers. I almost told him about the baby. The words sat right there in my throat. But I swallowed them. If he wanted space, I wouldn't hold him with news he wasn't ready for. So I nodded. And I let him walk away, without knowing he was already a father. The first months of my pregnancy were the hardest time of my life. I went through everything alone. Morning sickness before sunrise. Long shifts that felt twice as long. I worked at a pediatric clinic, And some days I had to excuse myself to the bathroom just to breathe through the nausea. Then I'd wash my face, smile, and go back to taking care of other people's children while carrying my own secret inside me. I picked up double shifts whenever I could. Not because I wanted to, but because I was scared. I didn't know how I would raise a baby on my own, so I worked until my feet ached and my back burned. I didn't tell my family either. Not at first. I couldn't handle the questions, the disappointment, the "I told you so." So I kept quiet, wore loose clothes, and let everyone think I was just busy with work. Dane tried calling during those early weeks. I saw his name flash across my phone more than once. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes early morning. I never answered. What I didn't know then was that he had tried harder than I realized. Later, I found out Aloan had been intercepting things, answering his questions, feeding him lies. She told him I was already seeing someone else. Said I moved on fast. Said the breakup didn't affect me at all. Months passed like that. Then one evening, everything collided. I was at a grocery store near my apartment, standing in the produce aisle comparing prices on fruit. My belly was fully visible by then. There was no hiding it anymore. I turned my cart and froze. Dane was standing at the end of the aisle staring at me. At my stomach. His face went completely pale. "Maris?" he said, like he wasn't sure I was real. I couldn't run. I was too tired to pretend. We ended up in the parking lot minutes later, standing beside my car under the dim lights. "How far along are you?" he asked, voice shaking. 7 months, I answered quietly. His eyes filled with shock. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him for a long moment before speaking. "Because the night you needed space was the night I found out." Silence dropped between us. I told him everything then. The hallway. The conversation. His sister's words. I watched the realization hit him piece by piece. The confusion. Then anger. Then hurt. "Aloan told me you were already with someone else," he said hoarsely. I shook my head. Right there, under those parking lot lights, the first real fracture formed between brother and sister. The night after the grocery store, Dane went straight to his sister's house. He told me later he didn't even remember the drive. His hands were shaking the whole time. His mind replayed everything I told him. The hallway, her words, the lies. Aloan opened the door like nothing was wrong. Calm. Perfect. Smiling. But Dane didn't smile back. "Did you tell me Maris was seeing someone else?" he asked immediately. Her expression didn't change. "I might have said she moved on. I was trying to protect you. Did you tell me she was trying to trap me?" His voice was tighter now. Aloan sighed like he was being dramatic. "Dane, you were overwhelmed. I was helping you see clearly." He stared at her. "Answer me." She crossed her arms. "Fine. Yes. I said those things. Because I believed them." Dane's jaw clenched. "She was pregnant," he said. "With my child. And you knew how serious we were." Aloan shook her head slowly. "If she was pregnant, she hid it. That's manipulation, Dane. Think about it. That was how she always did it, twisting things, making him question his own memory. Gaslighting. But this time, it didn't work. You lied to me," he said quietly. "You broke us." For the first time, her smile faded. Dane walked out that night without another word. 2 days later, he showed up at my apartment with a suitcase. "I'm not missing any more time," he told me. "If you'll let me, I want to be here. For you. For our baby." I let him in. Living together wasn't perfect at first. We were both healing from something broken. But we tried. We talked. We rebuilt slowly, brick by brick. When our daughter was born, everything shifted again. Blythe. The moment Dane held her, he cried. Fully, openly, without shame. I had never seen him like that. From that day on, he was all in. He cut contact with Aloan completely. No calls. No visits. Nothing. For over a year, she tried reaching out, but not with apologies. She sent letters blaming me, saying I turned him against her, saying I ruined their family bond. I never replied. Peace was more important than winning arguments. Eventually, after more than a year, Dane chose to reconnect with her, but cautiously. Short calls. Careful distance. He told me everything each time. Trust had been rebuilt between us. But with his sister, a crack always remained. The first time I saw Aloan again was during the holidays, about a year after Blythe was born. Dane's parents invited us to their house for a family gathering. He told me ahead of time that Aloan would be there. He didn't pressure me, but I could see the hope in his eyes. I just want peace, he said softly. For Blythe to know everyone. I was nervous the whole drive there. My hands kept adjusting Blythe's blanket in her car seat, even when it didn't need fixing. When we arrived, the house was warm and glowing with Christmas lights. His parents greeted us first, full of smiles and excitement over the baby. Then Aloan walked into the living room. She looked exactly the same, perfect posture, perfect hair, calm expression. But this time her smile was softer. "Maris," she said, stepping forward like nothing had ever happened. "It's been too long." Before I could respond, she leaned down toward Blythe. "And this must be my beautiful niece." She handed over several large gift bags, designer baby clothes, expensive toys, things far more lavish than necessary. "Just a few things I picked out," she said lightly. I thanked her politely. I kept my voice calm, my face neutral. I wasn't ready to trust her warmth, but I also wasn't going to cause a scene. Throughout the evening, she played the role perfectly, helping set the table, offering to hold Blythe, laughing with relatives. But every now and then, she slipped in quiet comments. "Oh, Blythe is growing so fast," she said once, smiling at me. "Everything between you and Dane moved fast too." Another time, while passing dishes, she added, "Some relationships just accelerate under pressure." The words were soft but pointed. I understood what she was doing, keeping the story alive without saying it directly. I stayed composed. I focused on Blythe, on Dane's parents, on keeping the peace. Later that night, when we stepped outside for air, Dane took my hand. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know it's hard, but it means a lot to try." I looked back through the window at the family gathered inside, then down at our daughter sleeping in my arms. "I'm not doing it for her," I said quietly. "I'm doing it for Blythe." He nodded, understanding. So I agreed to keep trying. Not because I trusted Aloan, but because my daughter deserved the chance to know her whole family, even the complicated parts. Dane proposed on a quiet evening by the lake near our apartment. It wasn't flashy. No crowd. No big speech. Just the two of us sitting on a wooden dock while the sun went down. Blythe was asleep in her stroller beside us, the water calm and glowing orange from the sky. He looked nervous, which made me smile. "I know things didn't start perfectly," he said, holding my hand. "But everything good in my life came back when you did. I don't want another day without calling you my wife." Then he pulled out a small velvet box. My heart jumped even though I somehow knew it was coming. "Maris, will you marry me?" I looked at him, then at our daughter, then back at him again. I said yes. Of course I did. But underneath the happiness, there was a quiet unease sitting in my chest. Not about Dane. Never about him. About everything around us. A week later, we announced the engagement at a family dinner hosted by his parents. Everyone clapped. His mother cried. His father shook Dane's hand proudly. Then Aloan walked over. She smiled wide and pulled me into a tight hug before I could react. Her arms wrapped around me stiffly, almost possessive. "I'm so happy for you both," she said loudly so everyone could hear. Then her voice dropped to a whisper near my ear. "Let's see how long this lasts." She pulled back with the same polished smile, like she hadn't just said anything at all. I forced a small smile in return, but my stomach had already tightened. As dinner went on, I started noticing things. Aloan drifting from table to table, leaning down to speak quietly to a cousin, whispering something to Dane's aunt. Soft conversations that stopped the second I walked near. At one point I heard my name followed by a hushed laugh. Another time, two relatives looked at me with curiosity I couldn't quite place. I didn't hear the words, but I felt the shift. The way people watched me a little longer. The way smiles felt slightly forced. Across the table, Aloan caught my eye and lifted her wine glass with a pleasant expression. But her eyes held something colder. Something patient. That quiet unease in my chest grew heavier. Because I knew that look. She wasn't done. She was planting seeds and waiting for them to grow. A few weeks after the engagement dinner, the feeling that something was wrong wouldn't leave me. At first it was small things. A cousin who used to greet me warmly now gave me tight smiles. Dane's aunt stopped asking me questions about the wedding. Conversations would pause when I walked into a room. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overthinking. But then came the afternoon that changed everything. We were at Dane's parents' house for a casual Sunday lunch. Nothing formal. Just family, food, and Blythe playing on a blanket in the living room. I went down the hallway to look for the bathroom. That's when I heard voices from the open guest room. Two of Dane's cousins were inside talking quietly. I wasn't trying to listen, but then I heard my name. I mean, Eloan said the pregnancy wasn't exactly an accident, one of them whispered. My steps froze. What do you mean? The other asked. She said Maris knew Dane wasn't ready, but did it anyway. Like, to secure the relationship. My chest tightened. The first cousin lowered her voice more. Apparently Maris even hinted at custody battles if he didn't stay. I felt like the floor tilted under me. That's messy, the second cousin said. I also heard Dane wasn't even sure the baby was his at first. They both went quiet after that. I didn't stay to hear more. I walked back down the hallway slowly, my ears ringing. Every whisper, every strange look, every forced smile suddenly made sense. Eloan wasn't just making small comments anymore. She was rewriting the entire story, turning my pregnancy into a scheme, turning my silence into manipulation, even questioning Blythe's paternity. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching her laugh with relatives like she hadn't done anything wrong, like she hadn't taken one of the most painful times in my life and twisted it into gossip. For years, I had stayed quiet. When she sent letters blaming me, I ignored them. When she made subtle comments, I let them slide. I chose peace for Dane, for Blythe. But standing there, hearing what she'd spread, something inside me shifted. This wasn't about pride anymore. It was about truth. About my daughter. I looked over at Blythe playing on the blanket, completely innocent to the stories being built around her existence. That's when I made my decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't argue. But I also wouldn't stay silent this time. If Eloan wanted to rewrite history, then I was ready to remind everyone what really happened. 3 years had passed, but I still had the proof tucked away on my phone. A small voice memo I had recorded that night in Dane's old apartment. The night everything first cracked. I had never planned to use it. I wasn't vindictive. I just needed to know the truth was safe in my hands, in case things ever got twisted again. I listened to it quietly one evening while Blythe slept in her crib. Eloan's voice, clear and precise, filled the room. She'll trap you with a baby. Then, a little later, women like her always do. My heart sank at hearing it again, but at the same time, it gave me strength. For 3 years, I'd carried the secret of that night in my mind. The hallway, the words, the betrayal, but no one else knew. Not Dane, not his family. And Eloan had no idea I had it recorded. I debated for days whether I should even use it. Could I expose her and risk creating more conflict? Could I just let her continue rewriting the story? Every time I thought about it, I remembered the cousins whispering. The looks from relatives. The way Dane had hesitated when he first saw me pregnant. I realized something important. It wasn't about revenge. It was about setting the record straight. Protecting my family. Protecting Blythe from lies. I kept the phone close as the engagement dinner approached. Eloan would be there, smiling, polished, pretending nothing had happened. Pretending she hadn't spent years trying to control Dane's life. I felt a mixture of nerves and resolve. My hands shook slightly when I thought about confronting her, but I also felt calm. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to show the truth, quietly, clearly, and finally. Dane didn't know I had proof. Not yet. And that made me feel ready. This wasn't about winning. It was about honesty. About finally letting everyone see what had really happened that night. About showing Eloan that manipulation, lies, and control only work if people stay silent. I tucked the phone in my purse, glanced down at Blythe sleeping, and whispered to myself, it's time they hear the truth. The engagement dinner wasn't just about celebrating us anymore. It was about closing a chapter that had haunted me for 3 years. And I was ready. The engagement dinner had started like any other family gathering. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the smell of roast filling the room. But I felt a quiet tension under my skin. I knew Eloan would be there, smiling her perfect smile, pretending everything was fine. She moved around the table, chatting with relatives, acting warm and welcoming. Then she raised her glass, catching everyone's attention. To family, love, and the clever ways women get what they want, she said, her eyes locking on mine. Some women are just really good at trapping men with babies. A ripple of laughter went around the table, nervous and forced. I could feel Dane's hand tighten over mine under the table. He looked at me, confused and hurt. I stayed calm. I set my glass down slowly, took a deep breath, and reached into my purse. The small phone in my hand felt heavier than it was. I pressed play. Eloan's voice filled the room. Clear. Sharp. Unmistakable. She'll trap you with a baby, the recording said. Women like her always do, came the second line. The laughter died immediately. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Utensils clinked against plates, forgotten. Everyone froze. Dane's face went pale. His eyes widened in disbelief. He looked from me to the phone, then at his sister, who had suddenly lost her perfect composure. The Whitaker parents sat forward, their expressions hardening. They stared at Eloan, searching for an explanation. Eloan opened her mouth, trying to laugh. A little nervous, a little too loud. "Oh, that was a long time ago. I didn't mean it like that." No one laughed. Her charm, her poise, all of it melted into thin air. The room was silent, tense, waiting. Dane's jaw tightened. He looked at me like he was seeing the whole story for the first time. Like he finally understood how manipulated he had been. Eloan shifted in her seat, trying to meet eyes, but there was no defense left. I stayed calm. I didn't add anything. I let her words speak for themselves. For the first time in years, she had no room to twist the story. No smile could hide what she said. And in that quiet, heavy silence, I felt a sense of relief. Not anger. Not triumph. Just relief that the truth, my truth, Dane's truth and Blythe's, was finally heard. The table had gone still, the celebration paused, and Eloan had nowhere to hide. The room was silent after the recording ended. Whitaker parents looked from me to Eloan, confusion and shock on their faces. "Explain yourself," Dane's mother said finally, her voice calm but firm. Eloan opened her mouth, then hesitated. "Maris is holding grudges," she said, pointing at me. She twisted everything. "She's trying to make me look bad." Her words fell flat. Everyone could feel the weight of what they just heard. Dane stood, his face pale but steady. He looked at his sister like he had never seen her before. "You didn't protect me," he said softly, his voice quiet but sharp. "You tried to control me. You lied to me. You tried to make me doubt the woman I love." Eloan's smile faltered. She tried to argue, to twist it, but the words didn't come out right. She looked around, realizing for the first time that no one was on her side. Then she got up. Her chair scraped the floor loudly. She turned toward the door, pulling her coat around her like armor, and stormed out. The room exhaled. Dane's parents were quiet but supportive. His father gave me a small nod. His mother squeezed Dane's hand, understanding the relief and pain all at once. No one needed to say more. The truth had been told. Justice didn't have to be loud or dramatic. It was quiet, undeniable, and final. Months later, the wedding came. A warm spring day, the flowers blooming around the small chapel where Dane and I said our vows. Eloan was not invited. Dane had made that decision months before, after long conversations with his parents and me. We didn't need her presence to celebrate what we had built. I stood at the entrance, holding Blythe's hand. She looked up at me, curious and smiling, not knowing the history behind the day, just feeling the love around her. The doors opened, and I began walking down the aisle. Guests smiled, some misty-eyed, all there to support the family we had carefully rebuilt. Outside, just down the road, I saw a familiar car drive past the chapel slowly. Eloan was inside, alone. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Inside, I felt peace. I hadn't trapped anyone. I hadn't schemed or shouted. I had survived sabotage, lies, and manipulation. And when the truth finally came out, I didn't scream. I didn't cry in public. I pressed play. And everything changed. The room had heard the truth. The family had seen it. And most importantly, Dane, Blythe, and I could finally move forward without shadows from the past. This story shows the power of patience, documentation, and standing up for the truth calmly. If you ever face manipulation or lies, keep records, stay composed, and protect your well-being. Learning to act thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively can prevent long-term damage and help rebuild trust in relationships.